Welcome dear children. In this biology session, we are going to focus on the details of the structure of eye. I hope that all have done a thorough revision of the previous day classes, especially the structure, protective structure of the eye and various details, isn't it? So today we are going to discuss and study the new topic, the structure of eye. The structure of eye. Structure of eye. So in this module, we are going to discuss and study the structure of eye in a detailed way. So the major points under this module are the layers of eye, the modifications of various layers in the eyeball, the fluids present inside the eye, the photoreceptors, lens, optic nerve, and finally special areas or spots in the eye. So, eye appears as a hollow spherical organ. So, it has got different layers. So, there are three major layers. Here you can see the outside a white layer, the middle a red layer, and the third layer is yellow in color. So each layer is peeled off a little in order to focus on the types of layers in our eyeball. So here you can see the first layer, then the second layer, and the innermost third layer. So eyeball is made up of three layers. Now let's see which are all the three layers. First layer is called sclera and it gets modified into a structure called cornea. Second layer is choroid and it has so many modifications: iris, ciliary muscle and ligament. And there is a small aperture inside the structure that is called pupil. So the major three modifications of choroid are iris, ciliary muscle and the ligaments. Next and the last or the innermost layer is the retina. Retina contain the photoreceptors called rods and cones. So how many layers are there in the eyeball? Three layers: sclera, choroid and retina. There are three layers in our eyeball: sclera, choroid and retina. The sclera gets modified into a structure called cornea. The choroid gets modified into iris, ciliary muscle and ligament. Pupil is an aperture, a small opening seen in between the iris, and retina contains photoreceptors called rods and cones. Let's move on to the first layer of our eyeball, sclera. Sclera is, as I said, that is the outermost tough layer of the eyeball. So here you can see that white colored portion. This is the sclera, which is covered by a thin semi-transparent membrane called conjunctiva. Do you remember that? A semi-transparent thin mucous membrane called conjunctiva. So just beneath this conjunctiva is the sclera. So when you view the front part of our eye, we can see it as a white colored structure. That is the sclera. So this is the cross section showing the sclera layer. Here you can see the outermost white color tough layer is the sclera. The outermost layer of the eyeball, it is made up of connective tissue, a special type of cell. The major function is to give firmness to the eye. So that is important. What is the function of sclera? To give firmness to the eye. So it is the outermost layer and the function is to provide firmness to the eye. Firmness means some sort of rigidity. It is very tough in nature, which maintains the shape of the eyeball. So here also you can see the tough layer sclera, which provide the firmness to the eyeball so that eyeballs appear as a ball-like structure to hold all the fluids and other structure inside. Next one is cornea. Cornea is the bulged transparent modification of sclera. So when the sclera comes to the anterior part, it gets modified into a transparent as well as bulged portion that is known as cornea. So here you can see this bulged portion is called a cornea. This is the side view which shows clearly the bulging or the projection. So that the transparent bulged part is called cornea. The projected transparent anterior part of the sclera is called cornea. The major function is to refract the light rays to focus on the retina. So from where it is formed from? It is actually the modification of sclera. And what is the function of cornea? Refract light rays to focus on retina. So they helps in focusing the light rays to retina. So here you can see the next layer, choroid. The reddish colored middle layer is the choroid. The redness itself indicates the presence of blood vessel. So choroid. Here also you can see the middle layer is the choroid. Outermost layer is the sclera, that white color we have just discussed. And the second layer or the middle layer is the choroid layer. Now let's see the details. Choroid, it is the middle layer of the eyeball. It contains large number of blood vessels, or we can say that it is highly vascular in nature. Vascular means rich in blood supply. And the function is to in the eye. Next part is the modifications of choroid. That is, the first one is iris. Iris is one of the most attractive part in our eye. So different people are having different types of eye or eye color, which depends on the color of the iris. Even if the color is very different among each person, there is no difference in vision. So depending upon the climatic region, depending upon the race of humanity or human population, the color may differ, but the vision is same for all the human. This is the picture showing the location of the iris. In the front portion of our eyeball is the location of our iris. Iris actually composed of two types of muscles, circular muscles as well as radial muscles. Two types of muscles, circular muscles and radial muscles. Circular muscles, as the name indicates, they are round in shape, whereas radial muscles, they are line-like structure, or we can say that it is horizontal line. So this is the picture showing the position of iris in our eye. It is composed of two types of muscles, circular muscles and radial muscles, and these muscles work hand in hand in order to regulate the size of the pupil. Pupil is actually an aperture, a small opening in the middle of the iris. Since it is an opening, they appear as black in color. All the people are having black color pupil. Black color indicates the opening, but it is covered by a stretch of membrane. So we cannot see it as a whole when you observe one side. It is covered by a thin membrane, transparent membrane, so that the light can enter through this hole. And this hole is controlled by the regulation, or the size can be regulated with the help of muscles in the iris. Which are those muscles? Radial muscles and circular muscles in the iris. So, iris is the part of choroid seen behind the cornea. It contains a pigment called melanin, which gives color to the eye. So, depending on the amount of melanin, the color may varies, but the vision will be same for all, even if the color differs. And the function is to regulate the amount of light entering the eye. So melanin, as you know, it's a pigment or color giving substance in our body, and they can absorb the excess light falling on the eye. So it regulates the amount of light entering the eye, and the melanin has a key role in absorbing the excess light falling on the eyes. In this picture, you can clearly see the difference in the structure of, or the position, or the regulation of size of the pupil depending on the two different situations. First is the bright light. During bright light, the circular muscles of the iris contract, whereas the radial muscles relax. And as a result, what happened to the pupil? The pupil constrict. So constrict means it contract. So constrict means contract. That means small in size. So during bright light, what happened to the size of the pupil? Since it is receiving bright light, the pupil will decrease or regulates its size into a very small aperture with the help of the muscles, circular and radial muscles of the iris. Here also you can see the change clearly. During dim light, the circular muscles relax and the radial muscle contract. As a result, the pupil dilate. Dilate means increase in size or expand in nature. So this black color part is the pupil, the aperture or the opening is called the pupil. So during bright light, the pupil will remain small in size, and during dim light, since it is very less light, the eye have to focus very keenly on the object they are viewing. So it keeps the pupil into a big aperture so that to allow maximum light to focus in. So I repeat, this is the picture showing the difference in pupil in two situations. During bright light, the size of pupil will be small. During dim light, the size of pupil will be large. How is it possible? With the help of the muscles in the iris. Iris is composed of two types of muscle, circular muscles and radial muscle. During bright light vision, what happens is that circular muscles contract and the radial muscle relax. As a result, size of pupil decreases. Here, during dim light, in the second picture, during dim light, the circular muscles of the iris relax, whereas the radial muscles contract. As a result, what happened to the size of the pupil? The size of pupil increases. Okay. So this is the picture showing the control of brain to the pupil and iris. We have already discussed in our first chapter. Brain has a separate system, or our nervous system has got a separate system which is known as autonomic nervous system. This autonomic nervous system consists of sympathetic and parasympathetic system. So sympathetic and parasympathetic system. Sympathetic and parasympathetic system. The sympathetic have only spinal nerves, which is given as a yellow color here, and parasympathetic, which have nerves arising from spinal cord as well as the brain. So during emergency situation, what happens to our pupil? The pupil dilate. How it dilate? With the help of muscles present in the iris. So once after the person face the situation, the parasympathetic helps to bring back the dilated pupil into a normal way. So how does it happen? With the help of the same muscles present in the iris, that is circular and radial muscle. So this picture clearly indicates how our brain and spinal cord controls the working of radial as well as the circular muscles in the iris, thereby controlling the size of the pupil. Is it clear? So here you can see the iris as well as the pupil. Next, see some more details related to the pupil. Pupil is the aperture seen at the center of the iris. Aperture means a small hole, a minute opening seen at the center of the iris. So center means the middle of the iris. So when you draw the picture also, it should be like the same proportion. Between the two iris, you have to mark the pupil. The major function is to regulate the amount of light entering the eye. So the size of the pupil can be regulated. According to that, the light can enter inside our eye. It improves the visual acuity. Acuity means the accuracy or the keenness of the vision. So improves visual acuity as well as regulate the amount of light entering into the eye. So here you can see the major parts that we have discussed so far. That is the iris, then cornea, conjunctiva, pupil. So in this picture you can clearly see the iris, cornea, conjunctiva and pupil. Now let's see the next modification of choroid layer, that is ciliary muscle and ligaments. So ciliary muscles and ligaments are two structures that hold the lens in position. So this is our lens. That lens is held in position with the help of two structures called ciliary muscle and as well as the ligaments. So lens is a crystalline structure which alter its curvature and it is elastic in nature. So when they enlarge and they bring back the size into a normal way, the ciliary muscles actually hold the lens in position. Not only the ciliary muscle, the ligament also play a key role in holding the lens in position. So ciliary muscle, they are circular muscles seen around the lens. The major function is to helps to alter the curvature of lens. So when you study the physiology, curvature means in order to change or adjust the length, thickness, etc. of the lens so that our eye can focus the things clearly. So that is one of the ability of human lens. So who helps in changing curvature of lens? Ciliary muscle. Ciliary muscle help to alter the curvature of lens. Alter means change. Next one is the ligament. Ligament is also known as suspensory ligament. They also helps in attachment or holding the lens in position. So suspensory ligaments, it is also known as Lockwood's ligament. It is acting as a lock. That's why the name. Where to lock? To lock the lens in position. It is a modification of the middle layer choroid, and it is a series of fibers that connect ciliary body of the eye with the lens. So they are connected with the ciliary muscles or ciliary body. Now the function, it helps to hold the lens in position. So it is the modification of choroid layer. It has got connection with the ciliary body, and the major function is to hold the lens in position. So here you can see suspensory ligament and the ciliary body clearly. How they hold the lens in position. So ligaments are thread-like structures which attaches to the lens, and the ciliary body has got connection with the ligaments. So both the structure, which are the suspensory ligament and ciliary body, together hold the lens in position. So when the lens change its position, so when the lens alter its curvature, both the structures, that is suspensory ligaments and ciliary body, help them to do so. Okay. Now let's see the peculiarity of our lens. Human lens is elastic in nature. That means they are able to stretch and contract back. Transparent in nature, allow the light rays to pass through, and the most important feature is that they are convex in nature. So elastic, transparent, convex lens made up of protein. It is connected to ciliary muscle by thread-like ligaments that we have already mentioned. The adjustment of lens is called power of accommodation. The adjustment of lens is called power of accommodation. And the major function of lens is to refract the lights to be focused on retina. So the light should be focused on retina, that is done with the help of lens. So this is the picture showing the clear lens. It has internally, it has got so many divisions and parts, but you have to study the outer features like convex, elastic, transparent, and it has able to change its curvature. That property is called power of accommodation. So this is a picture showing the so far discussed parts of the eye. So eye is composed of 3 layers: sclera, choroid, and the retina. So sclera was modified into a front bulged part that is known as cornea. What is the difference between sclera and cornea? Sclera is tough in nature and it is opaque, whereas cornea is the front or the anterior part of the eye. It is transparent. That is the difference. Then second layer is the choroid layer. It is the middle layer of our eyeball. It has got modified into iris, ciliary body, ligaments, and the aperture in between the iris is called a pupil. Behind the pupil we have a convex lens which is made up of protein. It is elastic in nature and transparent too. Clear? Innermost layer is the retina. It contains millions of tiny light-sensitive neurons called photoreceptors. See, all the receptors are basically the neurons or the nerve cell. So, inside the third layer, that is in the retina, we have got millions of photoreceptive cells called the photoreceptors. Which are the two types of photoreceptors? Rods as well as cones. So this is the cross section of the retina, where you can see it is connected with the millions of neurons, and they have the endings called special cells called cones as well as rods. So here you can see the red colored structure, that is the cones, and the blue colored structure, that is the rod. In this picture also you can see the layers clearly. As we have discussed in the previous slides, eye is made up of 3 layers: outermost layer sclera, middle layer choroid, and innermost layer retina. When we take a bit of retina and focus, you can see like this. So this is a cross section showing the retinal layer, which is composed of millions of neurons. And at the end part you can see the photoreceptors, rods and cones. So let's see the difference between rods and cones. What are the function? What are its peculiarities? How they perform its function? All these are coming under this table. The rods contain a pigment called rhodopsin. Pigment means a color giving substance. So rods contain a protein pigment called rhodopsin, whereas cones contain another type of a pigment called photopsin, which is also known as iodopsin. So which is the first point? The pigment present in the photoreceptor. The rods contain rhodopsin, whereas the cones contain a protein pigment called photopsin, which is also known as iodopsin. Second thing, the shape. As the name indicates, the rods are rod shaped. That means cylindrical shape, just the shape of a chalk piece. So chalk pieces are elongated structure and they are very solid in nature. So such shape is known as rod or cylindrical shape. So rods are basically rod shape or cylindrical shape. So you can guess the meaning of cone cell. They are conical in shape. Conical in shape. Then how many types of rods are there in our cell, in our eye cell? That is the how many types of rods are seen inside the retina? Only one type of rods are seen inside our retina. But when coming to cones, we have 3 types of cone cells based on the primary colors in order to detect the variety of shades which are coming under these primary colors. So rods are only one type, whereas cones are of 3 types. Then coming to the function, rods helps in black and white vision. They won't give much clarity on color. So they always helps in black and white vision, and they are also active during dim light. So when there is less light, the rods are very active. So we can see the objects clearly but not the color clearly. How is it possible? With the help of the activity of rods. Coming to cones, they are active only during bright light. So helps in bright light vision. And during bright light we can see the colors of the object very clearly. Isn't it? So how is it possible? By the activity of cone cell. So rods active during dim light, whereas cones active during bright light. Rod helps in black and white vision, whereas cones helps in color vision. Now next point related to rods. They possess low acuity but high regenerative power. So the vision is not having so much accuracy. So you might have experienced when suddenly the power off in your room, when the light has gone in your room, what happens? You cannot see the things for a few seconds. It become very dark. But after a few seconds, you can clearly see the objects, isn't it? But not the color, but the location or the position of the object. So that is the meaning of low acuity. Acuity means less accurate vision. Vision is there, but it is less accurate. And what about regenerative power? It is a chemical reaction with the help of the protein. So as soon as the eye focus on the dim light, suddenly they start its action. So when the rods become active, then only we will be able to see the things in a normal way. So low accuracy but regenerative power is very high. But when we think about the cones, the thing is in a reverse way. The cones possess high acuity but they have a low regenerative power. So they provide accuracy very high but the regenerative power is very low. They take time to become active. Then last point, disease related to rod is the night blindness that we will discuss later, and the disease related to cone is the color blindness. So these are the major difference between rods and cones. Rods, as the name indicates, they are rod in shape or cylindrical in shape. Cones are conical in shape. The pigment present in rod is rhodopsin and the cones are photopsin or iodopsin. Only one type of cell present in rod but three types of cells in cone. Rod helps in black and white vision and they are active during dim light, whereas the cones provide color vision but they are active only at the situation of bright light. The rods having low acuity with high regenerative power, whereas cones have higher acuity with less regenerative power. Then disease related to rod is night blindness, whereas disease related to cone is color blindness. So here you can clearly see the difference between cones and rod. The dull colored, grey colored cell is the rod, which is having a rod shape or cylindrical shape, whereas the cones are conical in shape. There are different varieties of cones. There are three different varieties based on the primary colors. They give different visual experience to us. So the colors can be seen only with the help of cone cells. So this is the picture showing the arrangement of cones and rods in the retina, and later they are connected to the neurons here. Here you can see the different neurons connected to the cones as well as the rods, which is the part of the retina. Okay. Now let's see the two major spots or region in the retina. One is known as fovea or yellow spot, other is known as blind spot. So blind spot and yellow spot. Blind spot is the region where the optic nerve arises. Here you can see blood vessels are forming a network. Along with that, the rods and cones are widely scattered over the retinal layer. So there are two regions in the retina where there is slight difference in the distribution of the photoreceptor. One is the yellow spot, also known as fovea, and the other is known as blind spot, where the optic nerve arrives. So, yellow spot, special regions in the retina. So, yellow spot is the region exactly opposite to the center of the cornea, that is at the back side. It has an yellow pigment, presence of a depression, a small curve you can see in the figure, and it contains photoreceptors and it is sensitive to light. The eye layers are present in this region, and the most important feature is that it is the point of greatest visual clarity or acuity. Whereas the blind spot, lies little away from the yellow spot where the optic nerve arises. It has no pigment, and this is here the depression is completely absent. There is no depression at all. Photoreceptors are also absent in this region, so they are insensitive to light. Here eye layers are also absent. So when you draw the figure, please keep in mind you should not draw any layers in this region, and no image will be formed at this place. So yellow spot is the region where the maximum vision is possible, whereas blind spot is the region where no vision is possible. So this is the blind spot and this is the yellow spot. Yellow spot is also known as macula or fovea. These are the two regions in the inner side of our eyeball. So this is the whole view of the human retina. Now let's move to the next part of our eye, that is chambers and fluids in our eye. So we have two chambers, an anterior small chamber and a posterior large chamber. The first chamber is known as aqueous chamber. It is located between the lens and cornea. It is anterior in position and small in size, filled with a watery fluid called aqueous humor. Watery fluid means water-like transparent fluid. And it is a moving fluid, and it is formed from the blood. So in the front part of our eye, the blood vessels are very less or very few in number, or we can say the lack of blood vessels. So the front part of the eye must get the oxygen and nutrients that is provided with the help of this aqueous humor. So the function is to provide nourishment. So aqueous chamber lies between lens and cornea. It is a small chamber anterior in position, filled with a water-like fluid or watery fluid known as aqueous humor, and it is a moving fluid constantly moving in and out in order to provide nutrients to the eye tissues. Now let's see the features of vitreous chamber. Vitreous chamber is a chamber between the lens and the retina. It is the posterior and large chamber. It is filled with jelly-like fluid called vitreous humor. Since it is jelly in texture, they cannot move at all. So non-moving fluid. The major function is to maintain the shape of eyeball. So we have already discussed who give the firmness to the eyeball, sclera, isn't it? So the supporter of the sclera is actually the vitreous humor, which fills inside the backside of our eyeball, providing the ball-like shape. So these are the two chambers. Here you can see the location of the aqueous humor. Here you can see the vitreous humor and the chamber, the large chamber behind the lens, and the anterior aqueous chamber with humor that is in front of the lens. So in front of the lens is the aqueous, behind the lens is the vitreous. So when you draw the figure also, you have to mark the difference between the two chambers. Aqueous should be very small in size, whereas vitreous should be large in size. Clear? This is another picture showing the difference between aqueous and vitreous chambers and humor. The first part indicates the aqueous and the posterior or the behind large part is the vitreous chamber. So this is a picture showing the whole structure of our eye. I repeat, eye is composed of, the structure of eye is composed of three layers: sclera. The structure of eye is composed of three layers: sclera, choroid, retina. These are the three major layers of our eye. The sclera got modified into a structure called cornea. The choroid gets modified into different structures: iris, ciliary body and ligament. In between the iris, there is an aperture called pupil. Behind the pupil, there lies the lens. Okay. Now, the innermost layer is the retina. It contains photoreceptors called rods and cones. Rods helps in black and white vision and dim light vision, whereas cones helps in color vision as well as bright light vision. Two regions in the innermost layer, that is fovea, also known as yellow spot, where the photoreceptors are more in number, and it is the place of keenest or highest or accurate vision. Another region in the innermost part of the eye is the blind spot, where the layers are completely absent and photoreceptors are also absent. So here vision is completely absent or not possible at all, and it is the region where the optic nerve arises. Two chambers in our eye: anterior chamber called aqueous, filled with a fluid called aqueous humor. Posterior, there is a chamber called vitreous, filled with a fluid called vitreous humor. Is it clear, children? And here you can see the blood vessels also, which provide the nourishment, oxygen, etc. for the eye tissues. Now let's see the last part, that is the optic nerve. Optic nerve is located at the back of the eye, back side of the eye. The major function is to transfer the impulses from photoreceptors to visual centers in our brain. So they are actually the agents who transmit the impulse from photoreceptors to visual centers in the brain. So brain is connected with the eye with the help of optic nerve. So eye and brain has got connection with the help of optic nerve. So when you draw the optic nerve, it should be slightly below the yellow spot. Don't draw it at the, just right at the back side of our eye here. That is wrong. You should draw slightly downward. That is the location or the position of our optic nerve. This is the picture which clearly shows how many layers the eye is having. So the first layer is the sclera, the second layer choroid, the innermost layer retina. Then inside the retina we have got fluids, then fovea, that is the yellow spot, macula. So this is the picture showing the different layers or sections of eyeball: sclera, choroid, retina, then different regions in our eye, then the arteries and veins. So all together makes the eyeball. So, human eye is spherical in shape, hollow in nature, composed of three layers: sclera, choroid and retina. Sclera, choroid and retina. At the front portion, sclera become transparent in nature to form a structure called cornea. The choroid has modified into three structures: ciliary body, the ligaments and the iris. In between the iris there is an aperture called a pupil. Behind the pupil there lies the lens. Peculiarity of lens is that it can alter its curvature, change its shape and size. It has elastic property. So who helps to do all these things? The ciliary body and the ligaments. They hold the lens in position. Innermost layer is the retina, which contain photoreceptors, rods and cones. The photoreceptors carry the message to the optic nerve. Two regions in retina, yellow spot and blind spot. Blind spot have no receptors at all, so there is no vision possible here. But yellow spot having maximum number of receptors, which gives visual acuity to its highest level. Now, except in front of cornea, there is a protective layer called a conjunctiva. Then two chambers in the eye. So dear children, so far we have discussed about the detailed structure of our eye. So eye is a hollow spherical organ. It is a ball-like shape, just like the shape of an ice cream ball, as I mentioned in the earlier slides of this module. Do you remember? So just like an ice cream bowl is our eye, and it is made up of three layers. The outermost layer is the sclera, the middle layer is the choroid, and the innermost layer is the retina. Sclera has got modified into cornea, which is transparent in nature. That is the front bulged part of our eye. Choroid, as it is rich in blood vessels, it is considered as a vascular membrane or vascular layer. Vascular means rich in blood vessel. So this vascular layer has modified into different structures, that is the ciliary muscle, the suspensory ligaments and the iris. Okay, ciliary muscle, suspensory ligament and the iris. The third and the innermost layer is the retina, which is the most important layer in related to the vision. Why? It is composed of photoreceptors such as rods and cones. So three layers are there in the eyeball. Then the next part is the chambers. Two chambers are there. Anterior, a small chamber called aqueous chamber, and posterior, a huge or large chamber called vitreous chamber. Then two types of fluids are there. In aqueous chamber, aqueous humor, and in vitreous chamber, vitreous humor. Then two special regions in the eye known as yellow spot and the blind spot. Yellow spot is the place or the spot which gives accurate vision, or maximum vision is possible in the yellow spot where the receptors are abundant. In blind spot, as the name indicates, there is no vision at all. Why? Because they have no receptors. So two spots, yellow as well as blind spot. Then optic nerve is there, which carry impulses from the retina to the visual center of the brain. Then we have a biconvex lens made up of protein, which have so many peculiarities which help us to see the objects clearly and with distinct features. Then the protective structures, as we mentioned in the previous classes, all together makes the eye one of the most magnificent sense organ when compared to the other one. Okay. So please go through the points and slides. Here I am concluding.